Okay, chapter 8 covers macros, using macros, creating and using macros, submacros, creating and using navigation forms, also known as switchboards, using interface tools, and making advanced control layouts. So we're going to cover a little bit of all of those things. As with other chapters, we'll begin by making changes to already existing databases, and this recording and the others that follow will cover making those changes to the Vermont Publishing database. And in addition to all the macros we create that support the form, I'm going to kind of talk you through how they would normally be used in the real world environment. So we're going to first open Vermont Publishing, and it should appear as it did as you finish chapter 7, and including any changes or additions I instructed you to make after I reviewed your chapter 7 submission. So we're going to start, and we're going to begin with the instructions I'm going to cover now. Actually began on page AC 478. Again, I caution you that you should read the entire chapter away from the computer first, and then actually go through, listen to this video, and then go through the steps, and then review the chapter summary section to make sure you've gotten everything under your belt, and make sure you don't skip any of the little vignettes on the side, the BTWs, by the way, or the consider this, or other ways. The other ways options and the Q&As also give you information, many of which are reflected in the question bank for your exams. Okay, so the Vermont Publishing should be open, and we're just going to get started. We're going to the first thing we're going to have to do is create a macro. And I know that sounds a little scary, but don't be frightened by it. Macros are basically just automated actions that expedite things for us in a quicker way. It keeps us from having to click a bunch repetitively to do the same thing over and over. So even little things like the Control P to print, Control S to save, those are all supported by macros, things that make the control buttons work, or the keyboard shortcuts work. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is create a macro called Forms and Reports. And if you look at table 8.1 on page 479, you'll see the submacros that support that macro itself. So we're going to first do that, and the actual directions appear on page, let's see, on page 478. So what it has you do first is create the macro and add the submacros to it, and then we'll name the macro once we've added the submacros. I think they actually have you name the, let me see if I can find it, where they have you do that. They actually have you name the macro itself. Let's see. I'm looking. I'm looking, guys. Oh, yeah, it's at the bottom of page 481. Boy, I had to look all over for it. All right, so we're just going to step through. Normally, I would name the macro first, but I'm going to follow the instructions the way it is in the book. When I actually did this on, without using the book as a resource, and I just named the macros first. It's just a general practice I do, but let's just follow the instructions. So beginning on AC 478, we want to click the Create tab. And we want to choose a macro. Macros is an option as soon as it pops up. And here's macro right here. And normally, as I said, I would just name it now and close it. Just as we named some of the forms beginning and closed it. But we're going to start by creating a new macro. And the very first thing it tells you to do is to make sure that the action catalog is open. And it is open here on this panel. And we want to make sure we can see everything. And so the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a Submacro element to this that's going to open the rep seminar data form. And in order to do that, we're going to choose the Submacro element. It's over here. It's sometimes called a function, or sometimes called all of these kind of go into an argument. But we're going to just double click it, and it adds the Submacro template over here. It adds the beginning of it and then the ending. All coding has an opening and closing statement. So we want this Submacro to be called Open Rep Seminar Data. So remember, we made a Rep Seminar Data form in the previous chapter. So Open Rep Seminar Data. That's going to be the name of the Submacro. Now we have to build the steps, the things that makes the macro work. So the things we want it to do. So we want it to open this form. And so in order to do that, we want to add the action that supports opening the form. So one way to do that is you can, I just use the drag and drop method. It works really well. And we want to use one of the actions on the database objects. We want it to open a form. And if you go, you see there's several options. There's go to controls, which we used in the previous chapter. Go to records, open form, open report, print preview. We're going to look at some of these. So we want to open the form, and you can drag it right to where it says add new action, or we could have selected it from the group from there. Okay, but open new form. And so now we want to make sure that we put in the form name. The form name is Rep Seminar Data, and you see it will populate. And it is we want it in form view. We want it set so that the data mode is read only. We don't want the person looking at it to be able to edit it in any way. And then that's really the end of that Submacro. So while we're here, we've created this first Submacro. Let's go ahead and save this macro. And we're going to save the name of the macro as Forms and Reports. You have to be able to spell it right. And then you'll see the name appear right here, and that's the macro. This is the Submacro. And so we've done the first one, and now we're going to add some more Submacros. And just so I can see everything on the screen, I'm going to click this minus button to close this up, because I don't need to see the guts of it. I've already created it. It's time to add another action. So we need to add another Submacro. So we're just going to add a new Submacro here, and we're going to add these others according to the data on page in the table 8.1 on page 479. So we're just going to step through these using that table as a guideline. So we're going to add a Submacro. And the next Submacro, let me turn to that page, it's going to be called Open Book Rep Master Form. That's the name of it. And as I said, you can drag the open form command over here, or you can choose it from this drop down. It gives you the same options. So the name of the form is Book Rep Master Form. And you see it populates. We want it to be in form view, and we want it to be read only, just as we did the first one. And that one is finished. And now we want to add, we're going to close it, and we're going to add another Submacro. And this one is to be called Open Customer Master Form. And we're going to open form, which we add right here, and we're going to name, and this is called Customer Master Form. That's what we want it to open, and you see it populates, and we want the data mode to be read only, and that one's done. Okay, and now we need to add one for preview for the preview. We're going to preview 3 and export 3. So the next one is called preview book rep master list. So we're going to add the sub macro, and it's going to be called preview book rep master list. And the action for this is to open a report. Then we'll set the options for it to set it to print preview only. Alright, so we've set the title for the Submacro to be Preview Book Rep Master List. And now we want to open report. And this is in the table. The action in the action column, it tells you that you're going to open report. And then we'll set the parameter preview it. So we wanted to open report. The report name is Book Rep Master List. Okay. We want the view to be print preview. Just a minute. And that's basically all that you're going to do for this preview. So we're going to close it up and do the next one. And so just double click Submacro. The name of this one is Preview Customer Financial Report. And it also has an open report action. The report name is Customer Financial Report. It populates by itself. We want the view to be print preview. And that's all for that one. We're going to add another one. This sub macro is called Preview Discount Report. The action is going to be open report. The name of the report is Discount Report. It populates. The view is going to be print preview. And that one is finished. And so now we've created 6 sub macros. And now we're going to create the last 3. And the last 3 are export. We're going to export with formatting. And we're going to format them to save in PDF format. So the name of the macro, the next one is called Export Book Rep Master List. And the command we're going to open, the one we're going to open is Export with Formatting, which we could have done here, or we could have dragged from the other field. I'll show you both ways. So this one we'll just use the drop down. We'll choose it. The object type is report. The object name is Book Rep Master List. You see it self-populates. The output format is PDF. And I think that's all we have to select here. Let me look and see if they made us do anything else. I think that's all we had to select. Yep, that was it. Okay, and we don't have to identify the output file. You do that on your own when you export it. So that one is finished. And we're going to add the remaining 2 exports. So let me show you the other way we can do them. So we're going to add the sub macro. The name of it is Export Customer Financial Report. So let's do that. And now this is a data import export option. So we can drag this over just like we dragged the other, export with formatting to the add new action. And it does the same thing. This too is also a report. The object type is report. The object name is Customer Financial Report. And it populates. The output format is PDF. And that one is finished. And we need to add one more. And this one is export discount report. And it's going to be export with formatting. And it's a report. The object name is discount report. The output format is PDF. Looks like this report is missing. Oh no, that's right. It's really odd it didn't show it. Oh, report. Now. Okay, that's right. Okay, and so now this one is finished. So we have put all the submacros in. There are 3 to open forms, 3 to open so we can preview reports, and 3 to export reports in PDF format. So let's just save the macro. This macro is finished, and all of the submacros are finished, and that takes us through page 485, I believe. Let's see, AC 484. But I want to test the macro before we close it up. So let's just test this macro. We're gonna close this and close this, and now the macro. Oh, I think I closed the whole database. No, I didn't. Alright, so I closed the macros. Oh, I closed the whole database. Just a minute. Let me reopen it. Just hold on. I just got a little bit too hasty. I did. Okay, so now let's look now. Now you see the macros are down here. And if I run, you'll see them all moving very quickly. But I'm going to double click it to run it and watch what happens. It's going to run all the macros at one time. So the first form opens. And then the other forms, everything else should open. In fact, it should open the forms. It should preview the items that we asked for it to preview, and it should also bring up my export window, which we'll close and then we'll stop it from running. I think it's still running. Actually, it stopped at the very first item. But I'm going to show you how this works when we actually apply buttons to these. Okay, so now the macro is finished. That takes us through page 485, really. 484. 485 to 487 kind of talk you through the typical kind of errors you find in macros and how to fix those errors. So we will run this and we'll test it in a little while to make sure it's working the way it should. And that's it for this particular video. That's it.